Welcome to Din's Talk, the space where soul wisdom meets bold action. I'm Mia Dins, your host, here to ignite your fire, help you claim your power, and guide you to take unstoppable steps towards your dream. Every episode is designed to awaken your purpose, fuel your passion, and spark transformation in your life. It's time to step into your truth and never stop. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode on Din's Talk. Let's talk soul. Today I'm joined by beautiful Michel. We have a journey together already, and I'm so excited that she's finally on my podcast. I have been working with Michel. We both work together actually since a couple of years. We got introduced by a mutual soul sister, Amy. If you listen to that, thank you so much. Very grateful for you forever. And yeah, Michel, there's so much to say about her. Firstly, I'm very grateful that she's here today with us and she will be sharing her beautiful light, her energy. She is a soul guide, an energy healer. She says she's like a way shower for people, which I find very beautiful. And she serves in a way that's very unique. She bridges science and spirituality, has a lot of background. She's a certified AB teaching practitioner, AB energy healing practitioner, NLP coach, authentic self-empowerment facilitator, practitioner of Ericksonian hypnotherapy, and she holds a bachelor in psychology counseling. And that's just a snippet from everything she has done. There's so much more. I know that. But I just wanted to mention that all, not to impress, but to just tell how vast her background is. And I can feel that because when I started having sessions with her, I just felt there was this immense like grounding energy, like mothering energy. There was someone holding space for me. We worked a lot on my inner child, which I needed at that time, and my womb space and, the sacred feminine, all that, what I'm working on, guys, as you know. And also Michel has endured major grief in her life and overcame that. And still through all this grief and through all the challenges, she can hold this light and the space for people and giving this love. Every time I connect with her, and even now I feel like there's this blanket wrapped around me, which is beautiful. And that takes a lot because I know parts of her story and she will share some parts today. And then, of course, guys, if you want to go and connect with her, please feel free to do so. But anyway, that's Michel. So welcome. I wanted to just tell people like a little bit of our connection, and I wanted to bring out your beautiful energy because I know that you always play small. We all do that. I know that. But here I am today, being the sun for you, shining light on your beautiful gift, on your energy. And yeah, welcome to the space. And I'm so happy that my audience gets to know you, gets to feel your energy. So guys, just have a cup of coffee, tea, whatever, sit down, walk, whatever you're doing, and enjoy this beautiful transmission. So hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mia, for having me here today. It's always just so lovely to connect with you and chat with you. And thank you.
Yeah, I know I gave a little bit away about your experience, but who's Michel? Tell us a bit about you and, where you come from. And, I know there's always so much.
Well, I am South African living in Ireland. I am a mum of 2 children, Earthside, and 1 in the stars. And yeah, love kind of writing and reading, but honestly, healing and working in this space has just always been my calling. So it's just honestly as much as I give, I also receive, in doing my work. So I feel very blessed with that aspect.
And it's amazing because you have all this, this background, but you also worked in marketing for many years, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was actually a travel and property journalist and did some public relations stuff as well. So that feels like another lifetime ago. But yeah, that was I had my own business in publishing magazines and doing PR and journalism for many years, and then just got burnt out, right? And just felt that there needed to be more. And I just wanted to serve in a different way. And I was really feeling that the work that I was doing was just totally unfulfilling. I had been involved in trauma and grief counseling on a community level in a volunteer capacity for many years before that. And honestly, that was what lit me up inside, was just being there and holding that space for people. And it just kind of came as a natural progression for me to leave that corporate or that, that publishing heavy pressure deadline world. And step into something that was more aligned with, what I really wanted to bring to this world.
How did it come about that you started volunteering in this trauma community space?
Well, so I was 21 and
Wow.
my fiance passed away in a car accident. And yeah, it was super traumatic. And kind of lots happened around that time. So I found his wreck on the side of the road because he was supposed to have come to my house and he never arrived. And so I went looking for him because I couldn't get hold of him. And so I found his wreck on the side of the road. And, just standing there, I actually had the start of an awakening, I guess. It was like everything slowed down and it's actually indescribable. It's like I had a conversation with God, right then and there on the side of the road. I was completely unaware of all the cars passing, and it was very deep, but I didn't really know what it was, at the time. And then I got a hug from the chaplain at the police station that was just again anchoring in this feeling in me that came up later. It's always later once you get to digest some stuff that you really understand what it was about. And it really lit this fire in me to serve in that space, because of what I'd been through. The way I had been told what had happened was awful and just added to the trauma. And so if it wasn't for that chaplain, he kind of really saved the day, and really, really helped. And I just wanted to pay that forward, really. And so then I got involved in my local trauma support kind of group that worked closely with the police and the emergency services in my local area. And so I started as a counselor there, as a volunteer counselor. So I went through trainings with them, and that kind of spurred me into going and studying the psychology kind of aspect of it. I was super interested in that. So it just opened up this whole pathway for me. So I did that for about 10 years, and about 5 of those was actually running the unit as a supervisor, along with the lady who started it. So that was a really great experience, and it was really where I was meant to be,
Wow. I remember you told me once about that story because in one of our sessions it came up, but I completely pushed it away because I know about all the other things that you have been through and recently. But yeah, wow, it's like, I can feel it in my heart. It's like I think you can, as you said, it's undescribable, even experiencing that, because that's the nightmare for everyone, receiving, you didn't even receive a phone call, you went looking and then
Yeah.
you saw it. But
Yeah.
even this phone call, like, oof, even now I get goosebumps. Even this phone call, like it's a hospital or it's the police or someone knocks on your door. It's, my gosh, no, nobody wants to experience that, but it's it's part of our human life, right? Which is crazy. Interesting. I wanted to touch on that. Like, I mean, you were very young and then you felt this calling. It's not very common that a young person, your age then wants to volunteer, especially in a trauma space, especially putting yourself into that space because it can be quite heavy, also when you are very open to energy. And I know you get trained to have certain boundaries and stuff like that. But for me personally, it was never, even though I'm naturally good at that too, but I always was saying, like, I don't want to be psychologist or anything like that. I never wanted to be, I went to psychologist from a very young age when I was 18 because I was interested in getting to know myself and going through my own trauma. But I thought, no, it's too heavy. I can't do
Yeah.
this. Now I'm doing similar things, but I'm not a therapist, right? And I don't feel like this is my space to be. But it's interesting that you felt this calling, right? Did you have trauma? I mean, apart from past lives and ancestral stuff, but did you have, before that accident happened, did you have other traumas that you endured before?
Yeah. Yeah, I did in different ways, nothing that I really want to speak about now, but yeah, I did have, but that was really the turning point for me where it kind of just became so clear. It was like, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to be doing. It was like this urge to that accident really activated me, and if that's, I really do believe we all have these gifts and grief that we get. And while it felt like my world had shattered, I was 21 years old. I was kind of just wanting to start my life with this man, and that all got ripped away from me. And it's the most awful feeling. It feels like your world is just crumbling. But yeah, that's what really kind of my gift out of that was that I got activated into the space, and it was this real. My other experiences hadn't done that for me, but this one really was the sort of push the buttons, on making me feel compelled to help people in this space. Because honestly, the way that people get told about these terrible things that have happened, whether it's a phone call, people showing up at your door, or you finding out whatever it is, it's always hard and awful. And there's just no words big enough to describe it, right? That moment where it's like your heart just drops out through the bottom of your body. If I could do anything to just soften that a little bit or just help people in those moments a little bit, then it was like, that is my purpose. My work is done.
Wow, that's powerful. And, just for people who are listening, because trauma is such a big word, it's all, I like the expression unprocessed emotions, but everyone responds differently. Like you said, you first, it took you some time to process, right? Some people immediately like react. Like, can you explain a little bit what happens, and if there are some different types that people can maybe understand so they can reflect and look at themselves
Yeah,
maybe?
ugh, it's different. So like I've worked with kind of trauma with a capital T, right? So that's kind of really my big space, but there's lots of kind of other areas where trauma can come in, right? Where it's not these big events. So my kind of expertise is on these big events, so car accidents, armed robberies, that kind of stuff, right? The big stuff, that like the life threatening stuff. And I'd say like there is while everyone's experience is very unique and different to them because of, all of our stuff, right? The lens through which we view the world and our culture and our stories and all that stuff. But there is kind of a basic pattern that most people follow, if I can put it like that. In the first couple of weeks, it's just that shock and that numbness, not being able to understand it or feel like it's true, or just, grappling with like what's actually happened. And then when that kind of wears off, you get into the point where you start processing it, right? And this is the point that's uncomfortable and hard. And this is the point that most people tend to avoid or push down or, get really busy, like fill their time and space with other things so that they don't have to face it. And so people generally follow one of two paths. They either, or three paths, maybe even, they deal with it a little bit, or they don't deal with it at all, or they dive into it as hard as it is. Everyone has their own path and journey and lessons, to follow. So I'm not throwing shade at all. It's just everyone has to do whatever healing can be done for them that they can take on. And I just believe it doesn't matter whether your grief or trauma is from now or years ago. It's never too late to uncover those layers and work on it. And so yeah, everyone's journey is different and everyone has a different capacity for kind of working through stuff. But I guess my big experience was that what I really took out of it is that you've got to do what's right for you, and that you've really got to follow your heart. You got to lean into that space, even though it's broken. It feels like it's broken, and shattered and whatever. I honestly followed my heart with processing my grief, and I had to do some things that people didn't agree with, but I needed to do that for me to get to help me process it.
It's powerful. Yeah, because we have also a cultural norm about grief, isn't it? Like from my own experience, like when I lost my father, for example, my papa when I was 13, and that typical, well, my German culture and where I grew up, you have the funeral, and then after that, happy go lucky kind of life. Like nobody really is doing like talking about it, or even, and especially my family, it was not processed at all, so
Yeah.
it would really stuck in my whole body. And that's another layer we can talk about, because I am really like interested into that, because even trauma from childhood, and then you don't process that, and then we can go even further, the ancestral stuff, past lives. And when we don't process that, the body will start talking to us. And
Oh,
it's amazing. We have worked together, right, through our sessions. It's just amazing what can happen within when you start to get awareness. And even like the recent one we had 2 weeks ago with my back pain, right? I was in agony
yeah.
like 2 days or something. And then within that session, it just loosened up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel free, pain free. Of course, it took still a couple of days to, to release the blockages, but that was my work to do. But it was like amazing because we allowed space for some grief to come through, for some emotions that I was suppressing at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the body does keep score, as they say, and when we experience grief or trauma, we experience it on every single level. It's not just an emotional level. It's not just a mental level. Do you know what I mean? It's like body, mind, and soul. It impacts it all. And so the work is to be done on body, mind, and soul. So a holistic approach is really important. Um, I guess that's what led me to also expand my work into kind of energy and that, because while the psychology kind of aspects and the neuroscience stuff, which I'm just, super interested in, that's just one small part, right? And it can only help so much. And I really do feel that there needs to be, and that's what the energy work does for me anyway, how I feel is that when you start working with the energy and with that other stuff, it all comes together beautifully and just helps people move through the layers a bit quicker and a bit more in depth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of that. And I love, same like you, I love to explore and go deeper and never stop. That's why I'm so like activated by it all. Like, okay, go more into the mind, go more into the emotions, the body, the neuroscience, the energy. And then there's always something, a little bit, a pinch of astrology, a little bit of that. It's just like, I never stop. There's no boredom, right? I mean, personally, I love learning all these things. And was there like a drop in moment or something where you thought, like, psychology, the approach gets me only so and so far? There must be something more, like you said, the energy. Was there like a moment where you got guided into something,
Yeah,
or?
definitely. I think it was very layered, right, for me. So it took like my psychology degree, because I was doing other stuff, took me honestly a very long time to complete. I think it was like 19 years or something. So anyway,
Yeah.
but I stuck with it and I finished. But yeah, it was I fell pregnant with my daughter around the time where I was really kind of reaching burnout in my business. And it was not sustainable for me to continue working in that business and have a child. It just, did, like oil and water did not go, did not mix. And so it really, it pushed me to this point where I'd known for a while that I was feeling unfulfilled, that I wanted to do more, give more, live more in line with my purpose, but I wasn't sure how to do that. And when I fell pregnant, it was this beautiful reason, right, to step away from that business and look at something else. And I was looking at something that would kind of fit around my life as a mother with a child. And so that's when I kind of explored the coaching, and so that's where the neuroscience and the NLP and the hypnosis stuff came in. And, then that opened kind of like another door. So I did that when I was pregnant, so that when, after I'd had the baby, I was ready to go and start that business, which I did, still in the trauma and grief space. But the coach that was my mentor and teacher, he was a transpersonal coach and was very open and into like the energy side of stuff, and the way that the coaching, while it was heavily grounded in neuroscience, there was also a lot of quantum stuff in there too. And I've always had a curiosity and an interest in like kind of esoteric side of stuff, anything from kind of astrology to, all the stuff. But yeah, so that's when I got really interested in the energy kind of work and working in the quantum space. And that's what led me then through another doorway. There's always these layers, right? And so then I worked as a coach for a long time, but then a couple of years later, I did um, the Abbey energy healing training. And it was such a beautiful dovetail with the coaching, because it just kind of like all fits together, right? It's like this puzzle, and there's all these beautiful tools that work on all sides, if that makes sense, and some of the coaching tools really do work with the energy on an energetic level, while working with our mind at the same time. So yeah, it was a beautiful fit. And so that's kind of how it progressed.
And it's like a beautiful weaving together, how things will be given to you at the exact time. And I experienced that myself in my journey, right? I started like, I mean, where did I start? Yeah, with the moon, because I remember my auntie was teaching me when I was younger, when I had acne, when I was on my teenage years, she said, like, speak to the moon when there's full moon, sit with a glass of water and do that. She wasn't spiritual or anything like that. That wasn't, matched in that time. They weren't portraying that image to the outside. But it's funny when I think about it now, how she was like sneakily telling me, like, through the back door, do that. And I'm like, now I'm thinking, like, where does this come from? Like, where was this? Of course, from my family. My father was like practicing healer, but hidden, everything hidden. I put that imprint on me. That's why I was hiding in the closet, spiritual closet, for so long. I mean, we all are in some shape or form, but I had took this on very strongly. So, anyways, the moon, that there was astrology coming in, then all the mindset stuff, from being an athlete and working with the mind, then emotions, trauma, body, eating, so everything comes together. And now it's like a whole beautiful picture. And there's so much more to discover, right? And
Is
I think I'm sure you probably have a similar experience, or maybe you can share like certain tools. Then you use, of course, in certain stages of your journey, and you really need them then. But then you outgrow them. That's how I experience them. But I have them in my toolbox, and it's interesting. And then a couple of years later, because I obviously go through another layer in this, like around that, imprint, trauma, whatever you want to call it, unprocessed emotion, and this tool comes back again. I'm like, okay,
mhm.
wow. But it's never from the mind. I will always be guided towards it. This morning, for example, it was very random because woke up very early at 2:30. It's one of those days when you get that. Yeah. And then spirit is very strong, but it was beautiful anyway. And then there was a random moment where I cleaned up some old emails and I stumbled across an old reading, also from a student from Amy. And I totally forgot about it. She did the healing tool that Amy was teaching at the time. And wow, it was the same about the body, what we worked through with the inflammation and the flare ups and the burning feeling and the hormones and same thing at that time. And what she channeled was amazing. And yeah,
Yeah.
this is how it happens, right?
And
Yeah.
we do, like, healing comes in cycles, right? And we can revisit the same things. And it's like, that's why we can revisit the same tools. And those tools are never lost, but there's so many different healing tools available, right? From breathwork to tapping to whatever, it's a ton of stuff, Reiki, whatever, energy healing, like I do in the psychic quantum space. But we need different things at different times. It's the same, like you need different things on different days. You can wake up and feel tired. And so you're not going to go for like a 10K run. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you're going to be gentle with yourself. And it's the same with our healing process. You're going to, wake up and it is important to feel into what it is you need, and I think that's also where the progression for me came in with the energy healing, because after, so my son passed away as well, a few years later. So, I've had this kind of grief and trauma theme throughout my life. Yeah. And after he passed away, I just felt that I needed something more. I needed more of an explanation. I needed to understand more. And it's always been this quest for knowledge, or quest for understanding, that has guided me and led me. And so, working with various mediums and getting various readings and stuff, that's really what opened me up and more into this energetic space, kind of cracked that doorway that had been opened partially, like really full wide. So yeah, I mean, people have just got to follow the breadcrumbs, right, of their own life, and everyone's path and journey and experience is different. But, if we tune in, if we take a minute to tune in, and listen to our hearts, and our soul, it knows the way, it'll guide you, it'll show you the steps.
Yeah, I remember when I did like and I felt honored a channeling for your son. That was powerful and beautiful. Thank you for trusting me with that. I mean, it is like the hardest thing, right, for a mother to lose her child, and he was so young. And so yeah, it's just like crazy. And now you even recently lost your mom as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every grief experience is so different. So, like, you know, losing my fiance at 21, that was kind of earth shattering, because it's in this phase of your life where you realize, where you feel like invincible, and to realize then that you've got to actually face your mortality, and this stuff happens, with was a really incredibly hard lesson. And then with my son's passing, that was just kind of, that just shook everything. You know, parents aren't supposed to, like, their children aren't supposed to die. It's just kind of goes against almost the natural order of things, although it actually doesn't, but that's what it feels like, you know. And yeah, and then again with my mum's passing, you know, every experience is different and it hits you differently and needs different kind of healing, you know, to happen for you, you know, to move through it.
Yeah. Wow, it's it's amazing how you work through this, and but also you have the awareness, right, to do that, but it doesn't make it easier because people think like when you have the awareness, oh, then it's like, you walk through this stuff easier. It doesn't really.
You know, we all have our blocks, right? And the parts that we can't see. And I feel like that's where the energy stuff really helps because it just helps bring to the surface or bring to the conscious awareness things that people can't see, you know? Um, and they might know it, but not be able to, they might know it somewhere, you know, in their body, mind, soul, but they aren't able to make it concrete for them, or they aren't able to articulate it or really feel into it. And so that's where the energy healing is a beautiful tool, you know, to just help bring that all together for people, so they're sitting there with the stuff that they know is, you know, they can take then concrete actions to anchor in the healing into their lived reality, you know, once they know what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Of course, we all are having blind spots everywhere. And that's why it's good that we keep each other accountable, like when you did when we had a session together, you unlocked things that I couldn't see. My ego was in the way, right? And I was so stuck in my ways, like, no, I need to do it that way.
Yeah.
And then
We
you
all
come in.
human, right? We all have that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. And being like open to that, that is the most important part, to say, look, yes, please tell me, how can I improve? How can what do I not see? I always approach things like that. But coming to this, because grief and trauma is such a has some heaviness to it, right? I feel it. I feel it. So how, because you did it from a very young age, what are tools that you do? Or how do you keep it light? I'm not saying like, put it in a funny way, but you don't want to carry all this stuff with you all the time around. How do you keep yourself light, like,
With
and
my
still
personal grief and trauma or in working with people?
both, like personal and when working with people.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, it comes down to those micro things, right? It comes down to we all, it doesn't matter whether it's yourself or, you know, the people that I work with, everyone on their journey has the obligation to hold themselves radically responsible for their own healing. And that is the first thing. That is the first thing. So, um, you know, I have got to be radically responsible for my emotional state, for things that trigger me, for, you know, and so it's all the tools, right? Meditation, it's breath work, it's journaling, it's doing all the things on a regular basis. It's the consistency that's key. And look, we all don't manage that. You know, life can be crazy. So sometimes, especially, you know, with the mom, as a mom, you know, with business, family, whatever going on, sometimes those things slide. And then what I find is that I end up in a horrible place, right? And then I'm like, oh, you know, I know what I need to go back to. So it's just centering yourself in whatever practices feel good for you. And they different for me every day, right? So some days I'll feel inspired to journal. Other days I'll totally not want to be doing that. And I will meditate instead or listen to music and dance it off or shake it off or do, you know, get an activation or a healing code or something. You know, it depends from day to day. But again, it's a really feeling into what I need. What is my energy telling me today? Am I feeling high? Am I feeling low? Am I feeling energetic? Am I feeling tired? And really responding to that. And that's about tuning in. And that's what people, you know, that are healing need to do. And just in terms of working with people with grief and trauma that's heavy, I have obviously energetic hygiene practices, and that I can sit with you in your energy and then let it step away and let it go and seal it off when I'm done. You know, that's really important for me and as a part of my practice as a healer, you know, because it's your story. It's not mine. And I can walk with you and I can sit alongside you in that. But it's not mine to carry, right? And so it's again realizing that radical responsibility is not mine to carry. I can give it back or I can leave it with you, but still hold space for you. And I think that's really important. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And it's not that hard. It's not simple, actually. It's really the simple micro things that we do every day. And that is actually what counts.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that very important, the energy hygiene. And I obviously throughout the years also learned that a lot. And of course do it. And I can easily, like, when I say easily, but it's just because it's a practice. But you can sit in front of me, you can cry, I hold the space for you, and I do the reading and everything. And then after the session, I shake it off, I close it all down, the score records, and I can just move on. I can dance the next minute, and then I go to
Exactly.
the gym or because you have to practice that. And I used to really take it on. And yes, of course, there are still times when my energy leaks, when my boundaries are not set properly, and then I feel it. But what I was probably trying to say is, like, because you're more of I know you do a lot of things, but from what I pick, and also because it's your journey, you're really helping or focusing on the grief, like that is one of your main topics. I know there's a lot more to it. That's what I was trying to say. My soul is not signed up for this, even though I had also grief and stuff. That's why I was asking. For me, that would be, despite all the tools that I have to shake off the energy, I think it would make me feel heavy for some
Yeah.
reason.
I
Yeah,
have to say that that's because it's not your soul calling, right, to work in that space. So like it
yeah,
is mine, and it always has been. And yes, it's heavy. And yes, like you, that I can definitely hold space and have that distance, where I don't take people's stuff on. But there's often, and it's been a baptism of fire. Like you learn as you walk the path. Sometimes things have triggered me, or I have gotten attached to people's stuff. And sometimes it wasn't even about lack of energetic hygiene or boundaries. Sometimes it was triggering something in me that needed to come up to be healed. Often as the healer, like we get healing through doing the healing work and holding the healing space. And so that's definitely been the case for me. But honestly, yes, it is heavy and it is hard, but I was born to hold the space. Like this is my destiny, my soul path. And I honestly don't find it difficult or heavy. It makes me feel, when I can see that I have helped people just make that load a little bit lighter, it's like such a sense of completion or, contentment inside me that I was like, yes, this is like, because people, we do get stuck in our stories and we do get stuck in our stuff, energetically, mentally and physically, right? And just to help release that on any little level in any little way that I can, because we don't need to, we can let it all go, and the thing with grief is that yes, you always carry it with you, it'll always be with you, but you can decide how you're going to carry it, right? And you can either make it heavy by like having all these boulders in your backpack, right? Or you can unpack some of the stuff, and you're always going to have that backpack, right? That grief thing is yours, no matter who you've lost, and you always have that grief because you had a relationship with that person, or whatever it is. It's just that that relationship changes, right? And that's been my biggest learning. So my relationship with my son, with my mother, with my fiance is no longer a physical one, right? It's now an energetic one. And that is a huge adjustment. And we also change as people, right? When we have these experiences, like it honestly, it changes us on a cellular level. It's like, like motherhood can change you like on a neurological level, on a cellular level. It's the same with trauma and grief, right? It changes us. It changes us. And people don't recognize that and they want to go back to how they were, but you will never be that version of yourself again. You have to kind of work with where you're at now and see where you want to go forward. And there's always that choice. So we can't control what happens to us a lot of the time. That's like 10%. I always say this, it's like 90% of a healing journey is in your hands because you decide how you're going to take this forward. What are you going to do about it?
yeah. It's very powerful. There were so many things sparked up right now. And want to ask, like, go into it. Just that firstly, what you said with the soul purpose, I love that, and it's important for people to hear. Like, for just to summarize, if I was to get called to work with trauma, like people now, but around trauma, that would absolutely be soul destroying for me. Yes, sure, I can hold that space for a little while, but it's not my soul purpose, like you said. It's just for people to know. How do I know? Because it lights you up. It
Yeah.
lights you up. It doesn't matter if you work with grief, with joy, with business, with the kindergarten, whatever it is. It lights you up. It gives you energy. It doesn't train you, like you said. that was one thing. So it's very powerful for people to just reflect on that, because, that would be me trying to force myself into a box because, oh, I want to be like a trauma coach right now, but I'm not. This is not me. So it's important to listen to that, because I got this intuition already when I was 18, or even before that. But when I had my first sessions, where I was like choosing to go to a therapist, I was grateful for them, but I thought, I do never ever want to do this in my life.
Exactly. You know? Like me, I could never be a nurse, right? Or for example, like I could never. That's just not my. I cannot do it. I have utmost respect for them, but it is just definitely not my space.
Same. Same. I would be the word. I would have a fun day in the hospital for a day. Put me in there. I would be like, hey, everybody, but that's it. One day longer in hospital, I would not. It's just not my
Not
space. And
exactly.
like I have respect. I love, because when I have to go there and there are people there who love their job, that's the best thing ever, because they make me feel like welcome. They love to be there. They're, great. And I've actually most likely only good experiences with nurses. So thank God he put the one in my path who really love their job. But yeah, it's something I can't do, right? Like that would be, and that's okay. It's
It
not
is
our,
okay. But again, it's
so
about kind of tuning in, right, to your heart and soul. Like, what is it really that lights you up? And that's the big thing. I think there's so much societal pressure and conditioning around what success is, what we should be doing, blah blah blah. And so very very few people are really able to tune in and follow what they should be doing. And it looks different for everybody. Do you know? But honestly, it's another kind of like secondary sole purpose is like to just help people see that they can really just follow their hearts and do the things that make them happy. You don't have to live within those confines of what you think others expect or what society has set us up to be or do.
Mm. But that's what we do by doing what we do, right? And
Yeah,
and you will show that, you will show mothers. You are a mother of 2 plus 1 in the stars, like 3, right? And you're doing all that whilst going through your grief and normal day-to-day challenges, and you're most like taking care of your kids by yourself, in different phases. Like yeah, when you have them, and the school routine and stuff like that, and still holding space for, like, you can do it. You do it, and that is, you are the permission slip for other people to do that, whilst I am the one who's the single one and showing other people did many things. I will show as another certain set of people, women, whatever. You can do it. You can travel the world and have an online business, and you can
exactly.
do that and follow your guidance, your intuition. Yeah.
I think what's like true for whether it's you or me, and the people that we would speak to is that, it's always important to just kind of look after yourself first. And I think like that is an important thing in grief and trauma work that I do. It's actually one of the most essential things is that self-love component, because when we can give ourselves grace and self-compassion, and when we can love ourselves enough to set boundaries that and hold boundaries with love that are going to keep us anchored, grounded, safe, and open, you know, we can and do this work that we do, and we can allow other people show other people that they can allow themselves to be in that space too, do you know? But it takes looking inward, and connecting with that light within, as I call it, your little soul spark over there. That's would love to show you the way, but
Yeah.
people get kind of tunnel vision on what they should be doing,
And the
instead.
whole unlearning, right? I mean, we have been working together for a while, and then my way how I got raised, and especially also with being an athlete. So I'm conditioned since I'm 3 years old. Like, I mean, and then now I'm 38, and this is like a long time, right? And it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. But you can, like you said, you always have the choice, and we have to consciously choose every single day
Yeah,
for ourselves.
it
And it's
is.
that's
Yeah, and I like just speaking about the conditioning, like some of the structures in society are very supportive, and people really find comfort. Like I'm talking about now in the grief space, particularly, right? So you can look at certain grief practices that different cultures have, and people find a lot of peace in those things, right? But some people don't. And so that's why it is about like following what's right for you. And there are some structures in society that can be, or whatever it is, or programs or whatever it is, that can be incredibly supportive and helpful to you. But there's some that don't do that for you either, And so it's really about that discernment and tuning in again to that light within and going, what is right for me? And that's where I was talking about doing some things in grief that other people didn't agree with. And it's just, that went against the kind of norm, maybe, or whatever it was, certainly in my family and community. But it's what I had to do. It's what I had to do. And so I did it, and I don't regret it a minute, And
Would you mind to share something? I mean, that's the crazy part.
yeah,
If there's
I suppose little snippets, kind of like, I suppose if I look back at my fiance in the car accident, it was kind of, I went and interviewed the police and the firemen that were on the scene, and I looked through the case files, and they were very good, and I didn't see anything that I didn't need to see. I was just trying to process, and everyone was like, you can't go and see that stuff. You can't go and do that stuff. But I needed to look at it square in the eye to understand it. So that was my journey. It's not everybody's journey. And then also, there was kind of a viewing at his funeral before the funeral service and whatever. And, even the psychologist that I was seeing at the time said, like, you don't need to go and see that. But I absolutely did. I needed to go and look at that body and see it. Again, my journey, like, not right for everybody. But even against advice, I did those things, and it was what I needed to do. And again, with my son, we kind of didn't have a big service. We went away, kind of almost straight afterwards. We did all these things, and I remember someone saying to me, you're doing all the right things. And I'm going, but there's not a list of right things to do. That just really struck me, because I'm like, you can't tell me that I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing all the right things for me. Doesn't mean it's all the right things for somebody else, because everyone's experience is so different.
Yeah, I think I read there were two things, like when you said, like with seeing the body. Before I did that with my papa, and they only did it because I asked for it. And I was the youngest. I was 13. I just turned 13, and now all my sisters were on the table, and my brother, and and they were discussing that, and they basically, because he got cremated, right? But you because there's this belief, when you have an ill body and you put it into the earth, that all the germs will spread and stuff
Okay.
like that. Better to burn it. It was just it's a belief, and I guess also it doesn't take up so much space. I'm just gonna put it up there. Yeah, it's like about the money, isn't it? I don't know, but anyway, I asked for it. I said I want to see my papa, because I remember I saw him the night before he fell into the coma, and that wasn't enough for me. I just wanted to go, and I just wanted to touch and see, and that would be, for most people, be like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
you let your daughter go there? But luckily, my mom was always like very open. She was never very restrictive at all. Like, she was really like open and letting it all be, which I really love about. I love that part about her, and I'm grateful.
I mean,
Yeah.
also, with my son, he was also cremated, and I, went to the funeral home before, and also kind of dressed him for his cremation, and it was important for me to spend that time with him. And my husband couldn't do it, right? I mean, that's totally fine. That's totally fine, but I needed to do it, and so I did. And there's something comforting in seeing that their body is just a body, and that their essence and their soul is not there anymore. And for me, it gave me a lot of peace in some ways, and closure, while there was heartache as well, and that longing and the missing for them in the physical form. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to be doing those things. And so many of those things are tabooed, in so many cultures, right? Like in South Africa, certainly kind of, it was a bit, but here in Ireland, for example, when they have wakes, they have the body there. People can go and they go and pay their respects and see the body, like people in the community, right? It's just a kind of a normal thing here. And for my German neighbors who went to one of these wakes, they were absolutely shocked that this body was there in the house, and they were like, they were traumatized by that, for sure. It just shows how the culture was so different. So, we all got to do what we're comfortable with, and what we are called to do to bring our own closure and understanding, and of the situation, of the grief, of the
Yeah.
loss, of the
I love that the Maoris, they call it tangi, and I had the honor to go to one. I'm like, it happened to be the brother from my ex partner at that time. And although I wasn't fully joining the whole like thing, I came a couple of days later. But actually, I think they do like almost don't quote me on that, but almost like a whole week of that. And literally, like, all the tribes are coming in, and the people from the village, and the body is there. They sing, they can talk, they actually sit the whole night, and everybody can still come, and they have the chance to do the last talk or lay next to them or give them a kiss on the head or the hongi, with the nose and stuff like that. And they do celebrations. It's crazy. Like, and they give this time to just grieve, which and that moment, because I wasn't used to that, I was like, wow, I felt a little bit uncomfortable. Like, I didn't need to go, of course not. But at the same time, I thought to myself, this is amazing. I wish I would have been able to do that. I wish I would have had this space when I was young, when my papa passed away, because nobody was holding that space for this emotional, for this processing. And I personally needed that. I needed this comfort. And it wasn't there. It was like German, like, now we move on. It just didn't
I
work for
definitely
me.
think that funeral homes, like in sort of the societies where we live in, kind of Western sort of society, are getting more and more open to that. I know of a couple of people that have been able to go and visit their loved ones, for a couple of times before the burial, cremation, or whatever it was. So they are kind of being more open to it. But really, it's such a personal process, and I mean, I'm sure there's some people in that Maori culture that won't be comfortable with that or find that too hard to do, and that's okay too. It's really such a personal journey and personal choices, and that's where we really have to have boundaries, for ourselves, and know what, and just go by feel. Like, when you get hit with grief, and especially when it's unexpected or traumatic, you kind of feel like you can't even make a decision. You're in such a brain fog and shock and whatever. But honestly, you just got to kind of shut the brain down and not worry about it and just go with whatever feels the next right step, the next right thing. And that's definitely what's gotten me through a lot of times, with the grief, is just kind of going, okay, what's the next right thing? And sometimes it's something that someone else says, or something, that comes into my field of awareness. It'll always bring you what you need. And it's just following, your intuition and your knowing, because people have also said things to me and I've gone, no, that's not for me. And I've known that, and I've been able to follow that and not felt like pressured by their expectations or whatever.
It's beautiful to see it always comes back to following their intuition, no matter what it is about the grief, your soul purpose, finding your soul partner, finances, body, whatever, always comes back because we all have our unique construct, right? Our soul blueprint. And
Mhm.
what works for you doesn't work for me, or vice versa, or for
Exactly.
anybody else. And it's really important for people to remember that. And yeah, I know we talked a lot about like the grief process now and losing people, but it's really important to talk about that, right? People don't like talking about it. It's such a taboo topic. It
It
would be, or
is.
it's part of
Yeah,
life.
because you know what? It makes people uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable topic because no one wants to think about like the end. I think a lot of people haven't, they just kind of, death is this thing. And it's also like, definitely, certainly, where I come from, this cultural thing that you just don't think about it. And even like when my mum was ill, and, she had a very short illness, which is a blessing in a lot of ways. But she, my brother and I, we were speaking about this the other day, in fact, and we could see the writing on the wall. We knew exactly where this was headed, and we knew it wasn't going to be long. But my mum and dad just couldn't face it. They couldn't accept it. They couldn't, whatever. And it wasn't about like giving up hope at all. It wasn't about that. It was about kind of balancing the hope with the reality. Does that make sense? And it's always this juggle, I suppose. But yeah, we don't want to face our own mortality. We don't want to talk about it. It makes us feel uncomfortable because it's scary, right? And yeah, I think it would be really beautiful if people could be more comfortable with the concept of death, because I think then people going through grief, this makes me emotional. People going through grief would feel a lot more supported, because it is such a common story of people saying stupid things, to the grieving person without meaning to, right? But because the grief makes them uncomfortable, how you just say the wrong thing or whatever, because we don't talk about it. So you've got to think of something to say and you don't know what the right thing is to say. And so then you say something that's totally, people just don't understand how to talk about grief or how to support people who are grieving because they just avoid the topic of death.
It's good that this emotion comes up because it needed to come up right now. It's good because the whole topic makes me feel emotional, especially when we
Yeah.
talked about, the funeral and the memory of my papa. I will always, it's crazy, right? It has been so many years, but I also want to say like that this girl who lost her father will always grieve.
Of course.
Like you, the
Absolutely.
mother who lost her 21-year-old, who lost her fiance, the love of her life in that moment, right? That you thought it
Yeah.
to be. And the girl who lost her mother, just having an understanding, but it doesn't mean that you are sad all day, every day. It's just, um, like that, what I want to, based on my own experience, that at least, I mean, I think about my papa every day and I talk to him, of course, but there's always a moment, like at least once a month or every couple of weeks, where there's this grief coming, like for the moment, like a second, like, "Ooh, I miss you." Like and it's always there. And I've learned at the beginning, I think when I was starting to opening up and the mediumship and communicating with him, speaking of changing the relationship, right? And now he's in this, like, guiding me from the other side, from the spiritual side, and and soul essence, and which is amazing to just to accept that. At the beginning, I was like, "Oh, come on, Mia." Now it's like 10 years, like, just stop crying kind of a thing, right? And that's the worst you can do, right? I know, but that's how we get conditioned. And then the moment I started to accept it, it's beautiful. I love when I cry because it just shows how much I love,
And it's
how
just
much
about being
I love.
open to exactly that. And I just, it's like people think, and you spoke earlier about like there being the funeral and then you just got to get on with your life, and that is just the most awful thing because I just remember after my fiance and after my son just feeling like my world had stopped and I didn't understand why the hell the sun was coming up every day still and life was going on around me and it just felt like I was stuck in this place, and then people move on because, you've had the funeral and so you move on, right? And that's not how it works. And it's like after the funeral, that's actually the hardest. It's actually the hardest then, because that's when the real work begins, of just holding space for your emotions. But you will always have that. You just choose how you carry it, and you work through, people can work through their grief to this place of where I feel I'm at with certainly my fiance and certainly my son. My mom's still a bit raw. My mom's still a bit raw. We're still processing there. But yeah, and, I feel like you get to this place of acceptance, for lack of a better word, where you kind of just like you've integrated the experience, you've had your anger, you've had all the emotions still come up, but you recognize them for what they are. You allow yourself to sit with them as you do. You find the connection in them because you're not just going to shut off. You had this relationship with this person, right? Certainly, you and your dad, you had this relationship with him. It doesn't just like turn off because he's no longer here in the physical form. Um, and you absolutely can have a relationship with you. I love the way you say you speak to him, every day. Like I speak to my mom too. I speak to my son too. It's we still connected, and we can still have that relationship. It just looks a bit different. But that is what acceptance is. You kind of get to this place where you can hold it and accept that it's hard and accept that some days it's going to be tough and you're going to have these emotions and it's probably not on the days you expect, like not on the anniversaries or whatever. It'll be on a random day, on a random Tuesday when you hear a song that triggers a memory or whatever it is. um, and it's obviously often at the inconvenient times, but you've got to hold space for yourself and just allow yourself, and that's it's a lifelong thing. I will always grieve my son. I will always have sorrow around some stuff, but I have made peace with a lot of the things, that I didn't understand or was angry with, the unfairness of it all and all those things, that we go through. And I've kind of just, come to this place of I can't change what happened, but I can decide how I carry it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's powerful. And grief is just another emotion, just like joy, just like anger, and with
Yeah.
any emotion, it's just the labels that we give, right? We just allow them in, and they want to talk to us. They're like
They
friends. They
do.
knock on the door, and when we open it, if we just invite them in, and then they will teach us. And
Exactly.
and as I said, I totally enjoy these moments of where this grief is coming from. I learned to really, I truly do, because that shows me I'm human, especially when I had maybe a busy time, right? And I didn't allow myself to feel maybe for a couple of days, which doesn't happen anymore that much. But at that moment, it was a release. It was like the pressure cooker. And I was like, oh my gosh, there are feelings. Yes, I'm feeling. And I'm allowed to feel, which is beautiful.
as you say, your emotions are messengers, right? And so it's either showing you that there is something there that you need to work on, or something there that you need to do more of, or, and in the case of grief, when that comes up, it's just there showing you that you still hold love in your heart for that person, or that you still have connection there with that person. And that's like totally okay and normal, right?
Yeah.
And if it is feeling really heavy, and it's also just a part of the healing process, you kind of go into these grief holes, right? You just kind of will be going along, and then something will happen to like suck you under. That's just showing you where you need to do another layer of healing, And I do believe you eventually get to a point where you can carry it, like, and it's always with you, but it's just not that heavy, and it's just not that hard. And it
Yeah.
doesn't block you, stop you. It doesn't hold you back. It doesn't pull you under. You can navigate stuff with just kind of a level of expansion and openness and lightness. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. For I'm at the stage with my papa, like it's absolute sign for love. It always shows me how much I'm capable of loving.
Yeah.
Just to be, because we're gonna wrap this up, but to with the relationship that changed, I can totally vouch and say, and also have done a lot of work and working, with the soul contracts, but I would have never been able to have this amazing relationship that I have with him now if he would have been still alive, because the egos would have been in a way. And he signed up, his soul signed up for this. Our souls made this contract that this is the way it's supposed to go in order to accelerate my expansion, my soul process, also to open up my mediumship, or help me to remember very quickly, challenge this, the beliefs about that's it, after death there's nothing else, all these things. And of course it was hard for him to do that, because he knew like how much pain it would cause. But at the same time, he's absolutely grateful that he was able to do that. And I'm grateful too, because it brought me where I am right now. So once you get to a stage like that, but it takes a lot of work. We're talking years. It doesn't happen.
But it doesn't have to take years, right? Like that's why I say, like, I'm a way shower, right? Because I've walked that path. Like, I've taken longer in some areas because I've had to explore and experience. But people don't have to go for years living in this deep grief that consumes them or that bogs them down. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You can definitely work through it um a lot quicker, and we keep ourselves stuck in things often, and so yeah, that's all in our own good time as well.
But that's why we are here. And it was 111 when you said that, right?
Oh, beautiful.
It's a beautiful sign, guys. The angels are validating here. But that's why we do what we do. So if people are dealing with massive grief and loss, I mean, guys, you have heard Michelle's beautiful story, or in general, parts of her story, just little snippets, right? The book is coming, maybe.
The book is coming. Give me a few years.
Doesn't matter, it will come at the perfect right time. And it's just like, if you feel called to connect with her, like, where can people find you?
I guess on Instagram is probably the best. My handle is at Healing with Mish. Yeah, I guess Instagram is the main place. Otherwise, my website is www.mishfunke.com. And yeah, those are the two best places, I guess, to connect with me.
Yeah, I will put this all in the show notes. Yeah, your
Right.
handles and the connection, everything. And is there something, I always like to finish that off so you can tune in and be like, is there a message you would like to leave the listeners with? Something that drops in right now, like something that your soul wants to.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a story. I'll try and be quick. But
It's okay. Don't worry. Don't rush. We have time.
there's a song by Billy Joel that the song lyrics say, "Do what's good for you, or you're not good for anybody." And that has been something that has stuck with me throughout my life and has carried me through really hard times where I've had to make decisions throughout my life, but in particularly tough moments around grief and trauma and stuff, where I'm, making decisions that maybe go against the grain or whatever. But you've got to do what's good for you, or you're not good for anybody. And that is so true for your healing journey as well. So I just think those are really powerful words. They're not my own, but I borrow them and pay them forward with love.
It's beautiful. I absolutely couldn't agree more with that. Like we said that at the beginning, and it's a beautiful closing. Like, it always starts with you, and you have to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you can't help anyone. It's like the same what they say in the airplane: put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your own oxygen mask first every time. Yeah.
And there's nothing selfish about it. That's the most selfless thing you can do.
I know. It is.
So, wow, this conversation went into some wow, like I never thought that we would talk about, like so intensely about that, but I'm glad we did because it's interesting. It fits exactly what I experienced this morning when I read through the previous reading notes from someone, and just like this, grief that we can carry. And I know there's so much more that we can talk about because I'm also, we both talk about past lives and ancestral stuff, which is amazing. But this goes on another tangent. But I would love to talk about that another time when, next year sometime in the new year, 2026. And guys, if you have any comments, if something resonated with you or didn't resonate with you, of course, please leave it in the comments below. I'm happy to answer. Feel free to get in touch with Michel directly, if you're called to connect with her. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. I hope that you took something away, something got activated within you, or maybe you felt for the first time seen. Maybe you felt for the first time you're allowed to grieve. Whatever it is, it will be perfectly fine for you. And thank you so much for spending time with us. And I am so grateful that Michel was here. And until next time, guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you for tuning in to Din's Talk. I hope today's conversation sparked something within you. Remember, you have the power to align with your soul, take bold action, and live a life fueled by passion. Don't forget to subscribe, share with others, and leave a comment if this episode resonated with you. And as always, do it, never stop. Until next time, keep claiming your fire and your power.